Good evening and welcome to the May meeting of the Salem-Keizer Transit Board. This evening's agenda includes our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by announcements and changes to the agenda, and then we will have a period for public comment. Our consent calendar will include approval of past minutes and then some routine business. And then following that, we will have some action items. We will be talking about some new a.Cherriots lift vehicles, and we will be approving procurement for those and some a.Cheriot regional vehicles. And then we will be adopting the update to our 2017 Title VI program, and that will include several language changes and public participation, and to approve the General Manager to submit the document to the Federal Transit Administration by May 13th, 2017, May 31st, excuse me. Then we will have a third quarter financial report, a third quarter trip choice report, and a third quarter performance report, board member reports, and then some board and management issues. With that, we will call the meeting to order, and I'll call on Director Hamill to lead us with the flag salute.
Please stand and face the flag, and then join me as I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Are there any announcements or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move forward to the period of public comment, and this is limited to 3 minutes per person. Before we do that, Linda, will you please take attendance of the board members? Thank you.
Is there a presentation?
Public comment list?
And we have several people signed up for public comment. The first person is Damon Talbot, and you just identify yourself as a Salem or a district resident. And
Good evening. I am Damon Talbot. I am a resident of Salem. I believe I am actually in Director Hummel's district in Subdivision 4. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I sent an email to the board of directors and the general manager along with the media, and then posted a file online to social media to be publicly available. It was kind of my thoughts and opinions on what we could do with extended service, such as night and weekends. And of course, I did not have all the information available, so I was just kind of throwing together everything I could find based upon the routes we currently have and things of that nature. So I put together kind of a little outline plan. And the purpose of it wasn't so much the exact plan. It was to let you guys have a thought of, thinking outside the box. We don't necessarily have to have every route for every hour. We can, have a little bit more limited services in those nighttime hours and on weekends, long as we can have some sort of service. In my proposal, I limited it down to only 6 routes. Those routes were all within a 3/4 miles of anywhere within the city, other than a very small chunk of South Salem in the way that the routes currently were laid out. So it's things like that where, yes, it might be a little bit further walk than you would normally walk for your normal bus routes, but at least there is that opportunity to get to work on a Saturday, go to events downtown, things of that nature. The other item I mentioned was I don't do financial stuff very much, but I've noticed in a lot of cities they have transit boards on the buses or bus wraps and things like that, and I didn't know if a.Cherriots had looked at ever doing anything like that to help increase funding that might help to pay for some of this extended service that, from my understanding, everyone in the community wants, including yourselves. I think there's no question that you guys don't want it. It's just a matter of how do we get there. The third thing, since I only have 3 minutes, that's why I sent the packet in advance, is when you get to actually developing that plan, I understand, you're going to want to go and get an agency to kind of do that, but make sure to involve public comment, not just from the citizens, but the riders of the system, those actual users. Because a lot of times a company or an agency, they'll put together something based solely on the numbers, and the numbers don't actually always match up to what the actual use is. It's hard to say how much someone's going to ride a bus on a Saturday when we don't already have Saturday service. I know I would come down probably every Saturday, so because there's always events and there's a lot of things to look at, so I just put that together just to kind of give you guys a thought to open your minds to thinking outside the box and get some public comment, some other ideas from, those around here. And I definitely want to thank a few of the directors that did email me back with some other information. And it's a little more complex than what was available online. There's a lot of things you have to deal with ordinances and federal and state issues that I'm not aware of. The one last thing is, if you put a little more of your information publicly, such as like the trip reports and rider reports on the website, to where we can drill down and find the information ourselves, and if we want to come up with fun and unique things, it'd be great and helpful. So if there's any questions about my document or anything, I'll be free to take them or meet with you after.
Any questions from the board members? I think that on behalf of the board, we'd like to thank you for your thoughts on this matter, and this is a real pressing matter with this board. Our problem is we are trying to use the resources to the best use for the community, and one of the problems we have is that you've probably learned since you sent us the report that we have to operate the cherry lift service at all hours that we run bus service. Right. And even though it's a skeleton system for the scheduled route services, we would have to run a level of cherry lift service, which would be probably the same as if we would run the full service on Saturday. So it makes a cost that really increases the cost of that Saturday service significantly.
Right, and one of the board members had forwarded that information to me, which is something that's not publicly available. So I'm glad that now it's out in the public.
Yes,
so maybe
well,
there's
and
a
that
little,
is one of the reasons
little
we
bit
haven't.
less concern from the public saying, why aren't you doing this? Is because there are a lot of aspects to it that on the outside you're not aware of. So.
Well, and the reason we haven't done it is because we'd have to make a much deeper cut in the daily service, the weekday service, in order to cover that cherry lift service on the weekends. And we felt it would be better to have condensed service that serves people during the major travel periods. And I, for one, and I speak for the whole board, we're working hard to find a way to pay for 7-day-a-week service and later evening service, because there's a lot of people that are disenfranchised because they can't travel in this community like they should be able to.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm sure all of you want that service, and there's a lot to it, but maybe think outside the box a little and find some solutions that you may not have thought of yet, or that someone else may come up with. And hopefully we will all be able to ride the bus in the near future on a Saturday and come and enjoy downtown. So thank you for your time.
Okay, and thank you very much. Yes. Oh, yes.
I just wanted to say, you don't need to get up again if you don't want. Just wanted to thank you for your input, and I'm going to keep your email on file. And be sure and contact us too if you have other thoughts, because we like to hear from people. Thank you.
You put in time and effort on it, and it showed. Thank you.
Our next,
Linda has something.
oh, excuse me.
I have it.
Okay, Joshua, and could you give us your last name?
It's Dye, D-Y-E.
Okay, so, thank you.
A couple of things I'd like to bring to your guys' attention. One is when I was riding on bus number 18 a couple of weeks ago, we had a wheelchair that came on that just could not get into where the wheelchairs would usually be put, or into the special citizens seating area. And it was one of our older buses. What are we looking at doing with our older buses to help? Are we planning on getting new buses, and when are we getting them? And the second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is I think that on routes that are not ran as much, maybe thinking about getting some smaller buses to put out there for people that don't ride the bus as much. Save the bigger buses for routes that really need them. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from board members? We do have a plan to procure some new buses in the near future, and I don't know what the cause that the wheelchair wouldn't fit. Technically, the buses should accept a normal-sized wheelchair, so there might have been
This was one of those mobility-like chairs that is a scooter like, and it was a little big, and the driver was having a really hard time getting the straps around this passenger, and the straps would just not fit. And the driver made a suggestion about her getting some strap hooks to put onto her chair. I don't know if she did that, but it was really hard for this bus driver to get the straps around her, and I could feel her pain. I've been riding the bus for a while, and I've seen wheelchairs have to try to get up the ramp and try to get into position, and it takes a while for the drivers to strap them in, and I can understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, our next person is Leela Thompson.
This is Leela. She doesn't want to speak now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And Mark?
Well, my name is Mark Knick, and I'm a Salem resident. I don't use the buses too much anymore, but just what he said, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, they have to comply with the ADA. And in the buses, of course, I can understand some of these oversized wheelchairs and scooters, but on the bus, there in front, it says that you are required to move with people with disabilities. And when I was riding the buses, some people just will not move. And then the language change that you were talking about, there's nothing in there that concerning people with disabilities or anything, is there? You just said they were going to update that language?
Yes, and that'll be discussed later in the...
Okay.
in the
Well, anyway,
meeting.
at any rate, the cherry lifts, and also I've got to use that for a while after I have my back procedure. But what I was going to ask, what do they do with the buses? Does ODOT have control over that when they sell the buses, or who has control over that?
No, we deal with that through a process that's determined by the federal.
Well, the reason I asked because our church, not necessarily, but some of the churches we're getting a lot of older members, and we have transportation on Sunday to get limited transportation to get people from home to church and from church to home back. But the thing of it is some of the people in our congregation are getting older, and we're thinking about we're going to have to probably get a bus with a wheelchair lift on it at some point. I'm not saying that our church is going to do it, but I'm just asking if for instance, if some did come up for sale, would it be possible for us to buy one?
I'll let our general manager answer that.
Sure. So when we have older buses that are replaced, so there's a disposition process. Most likely the bus is going to be well past its useful life, so we will either sell it or auction it. Sometimes we donate buses. It just depends on the condition whether we want that.
I understand. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. And I've been lobbying hard for the transit package up there too. I see Bob up there quite often.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're hopeful that transit package will be approved so that
Yes,
we'll
and
have.
if that doesn't pass, we're going to
Well,
be doomed.
we will be
Well,
looking at.
they haven't had Sunday service in this community since World War II.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed.
I know.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent calendar, excuse me, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to comment before we move on? Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar.
And I'd like to pull, Director Krebs, I'd like to pull 2B and 2C just for a couple of comments.
Okay. Then are we ready to approve the rest of the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar with the exception of 2B and 2C. Second.
Been moved and second. Any comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And now we move down to items 2B, and 2C. So, Director Bush?
I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Item 2B is our MV contract extension, and we're having to do that to let the public know that because of the delay in process of getting getting the approval from the federal people, we're having to extend it for 6 more months, which is also costing us a little bit more per revenue hour to do that. And that's why we're extending that. Can I just go on to the next one?
Yes. Go
Okay.
please.
And then for 2C is our police services contract, and we have an intergovernmental agreement with our Salem Police to help us for security on our property, which is working out really well. And it's already in our budget. We've approved that budget last week with the budget committee, but this process tonight is just to get the negotiations all settled up and sealed. So
So
That's all
would
I
you
have to
like to move that we,
And then, any other comments? Okay, so I am then moved to approve items 2B and 2C.
Second.
been moved and second? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And now we'll go to the action items, and I'll call on our general manager to introduce our first item, vehicle procurement of cherry lift vehicles.
Thank you. I'd ask our Chief Operating Officer, David Trimble, to please come up and present the staff reports.
Thank you, General Manager Pollack. I would like to call on our Maintenance Manager, Greg Thompson, to
Sorry.
come up and provide the presentation.
I should have known that. Doesn't go any further.
President Krebs and directors of the board, thank you for hearing me tonight. The issue before you is asking the general manager to execute a contract with Creative Bus Sales for the purchase of 5 ADA paratransit vehicles, replacement vehicles, for the Cherriots lift service in an amount not to exceed $634,644. SAMTD's current fleet for delivery of cherry lift service consists of 43 lift-equipped vehicles. Regular replacement of these vehicles is necessary to ensure the safe, efficient delivery of this service. As part of the district's overall capital planning efforts, SAMTD staff is committed to ensure our vehicles are replaced at a schedule consistent with industry best practices. The 5 vehicles being replaced have exceeded the useful life benchmarks of 5 years and 100,000 miles. The vehicles being replaced have an average age of 9 years and 196,500 miles, maybe slightly higher at this point. The contract that we're entering is based upon the State of Oregon pricing agreement procured under procedures set by the Oregon Department of Transportation's Public Transit Department Division. In accordance with these procedures, SAMTD staff issued a formal competitive invitation to bid for medium-sized Category C buses and propose awarding the contract to Creative Bus Sales as the lowest responsive bidder. The funding and the financial impact comes from several sources through one is the FTA 5309 grant for $427,435, an Oregon State Special Transportation Fund, which would be the $154,710, and we have insurance settlement funds in the amount of $52,499. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Creative Bus Sales for the purchase of 5 ADA paratransit replacement transit vehicles for Cherriots lift service for a not to exceed amount of $634,644.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Director Hamill.
Okay, I'd like you to step back and take a little higher altitude look at our Cherriots lift fleet.
Okay.
I know we have 3 types of buses. We've got the lift gate equipped, we've got the slant floor with ramps, and then we've got the small vans with ramps.
Correct.
What are the vehicle counts for each of those 3 types? coming within 10% of.
Yeah, the smaller, the MV1 style vehicles, we have 7 of those. And you're familiar with those are the band style. What you're saying is that the angle floor, those are the R-Box.
Okay.
And those are, I believe, 6 of those.
Only 6. Okay.
Only 6 of those. And then the rest of the fleet are the standard cutaways with the regular wheelchair lifts.
Okay. I guess the thrust of my question is that as a consistent cherry lift user, I'm curious what the department's and maintenance operations impression of the vehicles are. Each has its own merits and its own disadvantage. For instance, these lift gate ones are great. They do a fine job, but the lifts are very mechanical, expensive, and prone to break down. The ramp-equipped ones don't have that problem, but they're a little harder to work with. So tell me, if you would,
Well, absolutely.
where we're headed with
We
this.
have every time that we go for a vehicle replacement, we look at a couple things. One of them being the right fit for the service, and the attempt was being made with the different size vehicles that we currently have to, the smaller vehicles would be to access the smaller places, the parking lots that you can't turn around in, the residents that are in cul-de-sacs that are tighter. The R-Box, the ones with the floor ramp, were an attempt to ease of access. And those did possess some difficulties with the angled floor. And then the standard vehicles they're pretty much the industry standard. These 5 vehicles that we're proposing are another low floor kneeling paratransit bus, a little larger capacity, and we're hoping to aim those for those larger pickups, the group homes that really we send a lot of vehicles to Garton and Rock West.
Right, you can see them lined up, actually.
Absolutely can. I've driven by there and I've seen 7 or 8 vehicles. Hoping that this will be able to take more. There'll be 4 mobility device stations per each one that are usable. They should offer an easier access for the customers getting on board. So we think it's going to be a good fit for the service.
Okay. Looking forward, do you anticipate replacing the slant floor vehicles with others of that type, or is this an experiment that probably will not be repeated?
I think we learned some things from those. I don't think there'll be a direct replacement. And like I said earlier, every time we go for a vehicle replacement, it may not be a one-for-one or replacing that identical vehicle. It'll be looking at what the service consists of at the time, what that means, how many
Right.
vehicles we need.
And how easily the vehicle can get to the location where the pickup or
Yeah.
delivery.
How do the vehicles best fit that service?
Okay, super duper, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Director Bush.
Do you know when the vehicles are scheduled to arrive?
Knock on wood. We're hoping September.
Okay.
So going off of contacting the manufacturer, what their production dates are, we're looking right around September.
And just a minor question, but they will have our new Cherry brand on there?
They absolutely will.
Yay!
These vehicles are white with the blue logo on them.
So they'll be the first ones, our flagships?
They will be the first ones if everything goes as planned.
Sweet.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Sure. I move the board to authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Creative Bus Sales for the purchase of 5 ADA paratransit replacement transit vehicles for Cherriots lift service for a not-to-exceed amount of $634,644.
Move and second. Any more comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we'll move on to the next item, vehicle procurement for Cherriots regional vehicles. And I'll call on her.
Thank you for seeing me still. So before you, the issue before you is, shall the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Western Bus Sales for the purchase of 3 medium-sized, heavy-duty replacement transit buses for the Cherriots Regional Service in amount to not exceed $647,208. So SAMPD's current fleet for delivery of the Cherriots Regional Service consists of 15 lift-equipped vehicles. The regular replacement of these vehicles is necessary to ensure safe, efficient delivery of the service. And as part of the district's overall capital planning efforts, SAMTD staff has committed to ensure its vehicles are replaced at a schedule consistent with industry best practices. The 3 vehicles being replaced have exceeded their useful life benchmarks of 10 years and 350,000 miles. The vehicles being replaced have an average life of 13 years and over 395,000 miles on the average for all 3. The contract price is based upon the Oregon State Price Agreement, procured under procedures set forth by the Oregon Department of Transportation's Public Transit Division. In accordance with these procedures, SAMTD staff issued a formal competitive invitation to bid for medium heavy Category B vehicles and proposes awarding the contract to Western Bus Sales. The funding for the proposed contract is provided through an ODOT 5310 grant in the amount of $447,589 and an ODOT 5339 grant in the amount of $209,523 and an Oregon State Special Transportation Fund of $94,142. Staff recommends the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Western Bus Sales for the purchase of 3 heavy-duty medium replacement buses for Cherriots Regional Service for a not to exceed amount of $647,208.
Any comments or questions? Director Bush.
Thank you. Do you have specific routes that these ones are going to be on, or do the buses rotate routes?
They do rotate, so they'll be intermingled. They'll be available for any of the
Any one of those?
Cherriots Regional Service.
And this decision to purchase buses, what's the length of time it usually takes from beginning, okay, we need the buses till we finally get them?
These, again, knock on wood, we're anticipating they're saying a production time of about 150 days. With our procurement schedule, we're anticipating these being delivered in October.
Okay, so I guess I need to reword my question.
Okay.
How long ago did this process start?
It actually started a while ago. There was, we were looking to replace, the vehicles we were looking to replace, long story short, were a diesel-powered rear-engine vehicle made by Champion. Champion ceased production of those vehicles, and there was really no vehicles to fill that gap for a while. They were talking about coming back, and they never did. In the meantime, Bluebird, that you're familiar with, school buses, they have a transit model that really fit our needs. It's a pretty sharp-looking bus. So.
Yes, Director Lincoln.
If my math is right, it looks like the grants add up to about 100,000 more than the not to exceed price. So what do you do with the extra 100,000?
Whoops. So if I may. So the grant amount, and we have several different grants. Some of the grant amount, the Special Transportation Fund, will be used for match dollars that were required, but the grant amount actually does exceed the amount that we'll need for these vehicles.
So you just won't use all the grant?
You just won't use it all for this particular procurement, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Director Bush.
Okay, I just wanted, the reason why I'm saying all this is because I want to let the public know that it's not a decision that we make lightly, that's like, it takes a month and then you get to your buses. So I was looking for a time frame of how long this decision process usually takes to do this.
Well, I mean, it does take a while. We've been through trade shows, looking at vehicles, looking at examples. We've probably started this about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And investigating what was out there, what has some reliability. A lot of the factors to make sure it's going to be the best bang for our buck on the service. So it does take a while.
All right, thank you for putting all the effort in. And thank you for finally understanding my question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Aludent. I move the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Western Bus Sales for the purchase of 3 medium heavy-duty replacement transit buses for Cherriots Regional Service for not to exceed amount of $647,000. Oh, sorry, $647,208.
Second?
Moved and second. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the next.
Thank you very much.
Next item is adoption of the 2017 Title VI program updates. And I'll call on our general manager to introduce the
Dan
topic.
Stonecliffe, a Transit Planner 2, will come up and present the reports for the policy changes and the program approval.
Thank you, President Krebs and members of the board. Tonight I have the pleasure of bringing revisions to 2 board policies and an update to the district's Title VI program for approval. Title VI, as you know, protects our customers and anyone using our services from discrimination against based on color, national origin, or race. The district maintains a Title VI program that must be updated every 3 years to be in compliance with federal regulations and rules. And we have a deadline of May 31st to submit our updated program. Many details of the new policies and attachments were covered at the May 8th board work session that many of you attended. And therefore, we're not going to go into detail of all of the policies and all of the attachments to the program itself tonight. I'll just cover the main things that we need to approve, that we need the board to approve, and ask for your motion at the very end. So first, we'll talk about the 2 board policies that need to be updated. The first one is number 104, which is language assistance. This needs to be revised to reflect the need to add Russian as an additionally supported language for marketing, planning, and administrative functions. Board Resolution 2017-04 rescinds and replaces Policy 104 with the new version. Policy number 108 deals with public participation process for proposed fare increases and/or transit service reductions. This policy needs to be revised to reflect our new major service changes policy. And Board Resolution number 2017-05 rescinds and replaces Policy number 108 with the new version. Finally, our third board resolution, number 2017-06, approves the 2017 Title VI program. So in your packet, there are 3 staff recommendations to approve the policies and the Title VI program. We'll read them one by one. The first recommendation is for the board to adopt Resolution 2017-04 to rescind and replace Policy number 104, language assistance, in accordance with the guidelines set forth that will provide language assistance to people with limited English proficiency. The second recommendation is for the board to adopt Resolution 2017-05 to rescind and replace Policy number 108, public participation process for proposed fare increases and/or transit service reductions. To conduct a public participation process in the event of any increase in fares or transit service reductions. And finally, our last recommendation is for the board to adopt Resolution 2017-06 to approve the 2017 Title VI program and direct the general manager to submit the document to the Federal Transit Administration by May 31st, 2017, as required by federal rules and regulations. And I can take any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions?
That was quite a mouthful. It's good you didn't have to memorize it.
Would somebody like to
So
make a motion?
we have just one motion, is it?
No,
You have to
all
have
three.
three motions.
Where, what page of it?
Page 36 is the first two motions.
Well, I will move for the first motion. Move that the board adopt the staff recommendation for, or staff recommendation on recommendation number 1.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'll make the second one too. I move that the board adopt staff recommendations for recommendation number 2.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And the third motion is on page 60. Okay.
I move that the board adopt resolution 2017-06 to approve the 2017 Title VI program and direct the general manager to submit the document to the Federal Trade Transit Administration, FTA, by May 31st, 2017, as required by federal rules and regulations.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we will move on to information items, which is first, I'll call on our general manager to introduce the finance report for the third quarter.
First report we have is the finance report for third quarter. Seems kind of anticlimactic after going through the budget process.
Yeah.
But we still report quarterly to you, so here it is. So Wendy Fett will provide the report.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. I am here to present the third quarter financial report, which covers July 1st through March 31st, 2017. Back last June, the board adopted the budget, which we are following, and this is basically to give you an idea how we're doing. First, let's talk about the general fund. And I'm going to take a high level, and this is going to be a little off from your slides. I basically just moved the revenues to the front of each fund. So just in case you're following along, I wanted to let you know that it'll be like the third page probably in your packet. So the revenues for the general fund are currently at 71%. So the far left column represents what our actual revenues are. The middle column represents what 75% of our budget looks like. And finally, the right column represents what the full budget looks like. So we're at 71% of our anticipated revenues, so we're very close to the 75%. And on the other side of it, the expenses for the whole general fund is at 70%. So our expenses are actually less than the revenues, which is a good thing. Now we're going to look at the divisions, which is how we budgeted also in the expenses. The general manager and the board of directors is at 60%, and that's primarily because the board hasn't been spending a lot of money. I just want to let you guys know you're doing a great job of keeping your budget in check.
No elections this year.
That's it. You haven't spent much but travel and meetings expenses at this point. Administration, which has human resources, finance, and procurement, is at 70% of its budget. Communications, which covers marketing, communications, and customer service, is at 63% of its budget. Transportation development, which includes planning, administration. Sorry, I'm going blank for the second here. What's the third thing?
Operations.
IT. Anyways, they are at 65% of their budget at March 31st. Then we move on to operations, and operations is where our fixed route buses are budgeted, our administration, vehicle maintenance, facility maintenance, security, and the West Salem Connector is all in that budget, and they're at 73%. And finally, in the general fund, we have unallocated general administration costs, which are expenses that are not tied directly to one division. So they're all put into this category, and we're at 52% of our budget. Now I'd like to move on to the Transportation Program Fund, and we'll start again at revenues, which is on the chart on the right. And revenues are at 61%, and this is primarily because this particular fund is primarily funded by federal funds, and so they require us to spend our money and then they pay us back. So we will get our reimbursement closer to the end of the year, and we make the expenses first. The Transportation Development Division in the Transportation Programs Fund covers trip choice and also coordination of the Special Transportation Program. And that their budget is at 73% at March 31st. Operations, which includes Cherry Lift, Carts Regional, Red Line, Call Center, and non-emergent transportation services, is at 71%. Communications, which includes the transit ambassadors, travel training, and mobility management, is at 70% of their budget. Finally, we move on to capital funds, and we're only at 2% of our budget, and that is primarily due to many of those projects are going to be completed next year. We do have flooring that has been replaced in Del Webb, and the administration cost for the procurement process is in there, as well as some technology equipment is reflected in that 2%. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Director
John?
Heinrich.
Okay. On the capital, where we're at 2%,
Sure.
is it not the case that many of those projects are pretty much done during the dry time of the year, which is not yet?
Yes, and also that's a millions of dollars of budget, and so you've got to spend a lot of millions of dollars to move that percentage up as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, which is kind of makes sense, but when you look at a graph like that, it looks a little.
Yeah, and that includes buses in there that, of course, are not going to actually be received till next year. So.
That would include some of those buses that we just approved.
Exactly, the
Right,
ones you just approved. Yeah. So that's a lot of money that's not going to get paid out till next year.
Right.
So.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Director Lincoln.
I probably should know this from the budget meetings, but is the Keizer Transit Center signal in the capital budget?
It is, and it, again, will more than likely be more reflective next year and as an expense.
So we haven't spent much on that yet.
Not at this point. I think it's, hold on, actually I have some documents here that.
I'm not even sure if they've started yet.
We're actually in the design phase at this
Yeah.
point, and we are actively working with our design consultants, and so we have charges.
It's
and I
about
believe
5% that we've spent so far
Right,
of that total
of
budget.
that total
It's about
project budget.
80,000.
The construction phase, which is where the big dollars will start to be
Right.
spent, will be at the beginning of next year. So it'll be during the 2018 fiscal year, and the projected completion date will take us into the first quarter of the 2019 fiscal year.
Wow, long project. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So
Yes, Director Bush.
Director, thank you. Jumped the gun. So as a follow-up on that, since these are all zeros right now, what will they be next year when they're actually used? Does all the money roll over? Does it become 200%?
We have, for the 18 budget, it is now reflective of only the projects that will be completed. That's what's in the budget. However, there's the working capital that's been set aside for the future projects into 19.
Oh, okay. I understand that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
No other? Well, thank you very much. It looks
All right.
like we're solving. That's what we like to see.
All right, thank you.
And we'll move on to the trip choice report.
Thank you. And our Trip Choice Program Coordinator Roxanne Belts will present the report.
Good evening, President Krebs, members of the board. I'm here to present the third quarter report for the Cherriots Trip Choice Program, which covers January, February, March of 2017. So these are the quarter-to-quarter numbers of the users in our database, the Driveless Connect database, and that's the ride matching tool that's used statewide. Fairly consistent from quarter to quarter. I also like to, this were the total number of users that are currently in the database, not necessarily all active users, but the total number that still have a profile. New users, again, it fluctuates from quarter to quarter. Oftentimes that's based on whether we're running a state campaign or a regional challenge. Although year to year, it's relatively consistent if you look at each quarter. I always like to share information about the match results. This is what happens when someone either creates a new profile or goes into the database and requests a ride match search to find people that have a similar commute. Excuse me. So we do remain consistent. We have peaks during challenge times and dips in the times where folks aren't quite as actively searching for other people to carpool with. There is some talk right now at ODOT of evaluating the database. It's not necessarily meeting all of the needs, especially as technology is changing so quickly. It won't be our individual choice as a program. However, we'll have input with ODOT Active Transportation if they choose to transition to a different type of database. Hopefully it will be relatively invisible to the end user, other than there'll be additional enhancements to the database and it'll work better. In your board packets, you'll see our recently completed market analysis and the work plan. I do want to touch on a few highlights from that document. Since we serve such a large geographic area, our program covers Polk, Marion, and Yamhill County, we really needed to develop an outreach strategy where we could address businesses, communities, educational institutions, and individuals, not necessarily based on the city they were in, but based on what type of organization they were. And so we'll be implementing the strategies that we have over the next coming months. So in line with our outreach strategies, we developed our 17-18 work plan that includes a variety of activities, but some highlights. These are things that will help us meet the metrics and the goals that we've set with our organization as well as with ODOT Active Transportation. So some highlights. We'll be creating new literature with our new branding. We'll be building with our IT team a one-stop shop web presence for the rideshare program. There's a lot of information that people have to click through several places to find, and we'd like to have it be a one-click solution for most people. Also within our work plan, we'll do enhanced outreach by creating a monthly newsletter, a regional newsletter, and then of course we'll continue with the outreach we're doing. We add new events every year, so this year I think we have about 27 events that we'll be attending. We work with our ETCs. Some of you came to our last ETC lunch, thank you. Again, you're always welcome. We will include you on the guest list. And of course we manage our student poster contest, which we've just completed. Next quarter I'll present all of the images of the posters that won. And then of course those end up in our annual calendar, those posters. Also part of our work plan, some new projects and initiatives we're including. We'll be doing a business survey and a household survey in coordination with ODOT. We'll be doing outreach to limited English proficiency, refugee, and youth populations, and we'll be working with our marketing and communications folks on that outreach. We'll be participating in ODOT initiatives and promoting the Oregonian Crossing Safety Campaign. If you haven't seen it, there's a Bigfoot walking across a crosswalk, and the idea is to educate people that every intersection in Oregon is a crosswalk, even if it's not striped, and for cars to stop, and pedestrians to pay attention to cars that aren't stopping. So we've been doing outreach on that now at our events, and we'll continue that throughout the year. We'll also be incorporating additional performance measures that have come as a result of the Oregon Statewide Transportation Options Plan, trying to get all of the transportation programs like mine measuring the same thing so that when we start presenting our results at a statewide level, we're consistent, we're making sure that we're all measuring the same information. We'll continue our partnerships, creating several new Wander Walks maps over the next year, and we'll also be convening a key stakeholder and staff group to help us as a steering committee so that we can evaluate the program direction moving forward. We have our strategic plan. We've got 2 more years left of that plan, so it's time to start getting some input from the community and stakeholders. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer questions.
That's very good. Do we have any? Yes, Director Lincoln.
Not a question, but I want to give Roxanne a big thank you. She and her Trip Choice program is contributing funds through the Keizer Traffic Safety Bicycle Pedestrian Committee to provide a bicycle repair station and air pump to the city of Keizer, which we're going to put up behind the Keizer City Hall in an area which is very underserved area, and kids have bicycles but no air in their tires. They can't even ride their bikes. So this will be a great addition to the city, and we really appreciate your help there.
Well, it was the program's pleasure to do this. And I learned recently that young children have to pay money to put air in their bicycle tires at service stations. So there is no free air. So in a way, this will provide free air for kids.
Free air.
I had no
Can you believe
idea.
that?
Yeah.
I know.
I know a service station that has free air, but
Maybe I should make a little website where people can look for free air.
Yeah, not just the walking map, but the bike map.
Exactly, where I could put that on the bike map where there's free air.
do we? Yes, Director. Hamel.
I too would like to thank you, Roxanne. This was, as the years have gone by, these reports have become increasingly valuable. I think that the focus of the reports and the efforts that your outfit are making are increasingly zeroed in, and the impression I got from reading the report was that ODOT is working in that direction as well, that there's genuine benefits that are accessible to the state as a whole if we focus in on it. So I'm encouraged by this.
Well, thank you. I'll share that with my team tomorrow.
Yes, Director
I'll
Bush.
join the party. Let's see, there was an open house for the Safe Routes to School about a month ago, and then I know there was a Get Salem walking kind of thing yesterday as well. And I also know you participated in all of that, lots of planning and preparation and hours, so that multimodal is a common word in our community. Bike, ped, bus, train, everything is being used to get people from one place to another. And thank you for your part in that and your team too.
Well, again, thank you. That's all. I'll let my team
A lot
know.
of
'Cause
details.
It's all of us. Watch for a program that we're going to be doing with the Gilbert House in October.
Ooh.
Very, it's a very good program, and our listening audience probably doesn't understand, but what you're doing is we're buying capacity on our road system so that we don't have to spend dollars building wider roads. We're servicing people by putting them together with other people to reduce vehicles using our roads, or putting people in as pedestrians or riding bicycles, which saves tax dollars that have to be invested in expanding road system.
And improves air quality and the health of the community in general for getting out and exercising.
Yes.
We always say we can't build our way out of congestion. We just can't. We're not making any more land, so we better start getting more people together in vehicles.
And are you working with Travel Salem on the walking maps?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's a real good tool to promote our community, both with local people and visitors coming in.
Definitely, yeah, we're working with Willamette Valley Health Partners, Just Walk Salem, Travel Salem, and then different volunteer groups depending on what region we're doing some routing in.
That's a great program, and we appreciate it. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And now we're ready for the third quarter performance report.
Senior Planner Chris French will present the report.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. I'm here this evening to present the third quarter performance report. Changes by service, FY16 to 17. A.Cherriots local service, we've, from 16 to 17, we've had an increase in revenue hours and revenue miles. The revenue hours, the increase is mostly from the changes that we made in January and also the addition of the Route 15X. Revenue miles is mostly, the increase is mostly affected by the addition of the 15X. Boardings were still currently down 0.6%, about 71 boarding a day. For the A.Cherriots regional service, we've also had an increase in revenue hours and revenue miles. The increase in revenue hours is the addition of the 1X trip that we added earlier this year, and also we made some adjustments to the carts 30 and 40, routes 30 and 40 earlier this year to help with on-time performance. And boardings on the regional system are down and continuing to that downward trend. On red line service, the change, we have seen an increase in revenue hours, revenue miles, and boardings on this service. Most of these, most of the increase is due to the dial-a-ride portion of this service. On the Cherry Lift service, we've seen a reduction in revenue hours, revenue miles, and boardings. There's not a direct correlation with the decrease in boardings to revenue hours and revenue miles. You don't gain the efficiency just because of a decrease in boardings. The buses are still out there having to travel to a lot of locations throughout town. Next, I would like to look at A.Cherriots local average boardings by month, year over year. And as you can see, in April of 15, we started a drop in ridership, which continued through the moving forward process, and has slowly now we've started climbing back up. November and March are both above that line, not significantly above, but kind of trending in the right direction. Next, I'd like to look at A.Cherriots local average boarding month by month, looking at 15 and comparing 15, 16, and 17. As you can see, for 15 to 16, we had a significant drop. But we, from 16 to 17, we tend to be trending along the line and not experiencing significant drops. Next, we'll look at changes by route. On this chart, I'll mention a couple things. with the splitting of some of the crosstown routes, with this, we're still combining the Route 1 or 19 and 21 to show the comparison between last year and this year. And along with all of the routes that we split, they're still showing that way. Significant changes that I'll highlight, the Route 4 and 24 show fairly significant drop in ridership. This would be contributed to the Route 15X traveling along the same paths, and so that would kind of show, or the 15 is picking up some of that ridership from the 4 and the 24. And Route 12, we made some changes earlier this year to address parking at Chemeketa. That had a significant effect on ridership, and we've made changes in May, which we hope will trend in the other direction, giving people more options to get to locations. Boardings for revenue hour on the regional system, for the most part, they're not huge changes. The 1X shows the most significant change, and that is we added revenue hours to that. The ridership has not decreased really. It's just we've added additional hours, which equates to less efficiency, but safer ride for people not having overcrowded buses and standing on buses. Oops. On the demand response, the numbers are fairly comparable between years without much change. The state bus pass program and Route 15X, starting in June through March. This chart shows the number of ons for the whole system, and that comparison, the percentage is the percentage of riders or passengers using state bus pass programs to the whole system. So this has been increasing over through the time that the service has been out there. And the 15X has continued to build ridership with significant increases January, February, and March. Some of this could be due to the legislative session and people start using the route more. And that is the end of my report. I can answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, Director Hamhill.
In the entire report, the one thing that really stood out was the increase in ridership with red line dial-a-ride. We had seen small decreases in almost every aspect, some exceptions to that, but always for reasons that are understood. But the big increase in the dial-a-ride on red line was noteworthy. Would you talk to us about that a little?
As far as the large increase from...
What contributed to that big increase, do you think?
I do not have I don't know that. I can get back to you, but I don't have the answer to it.
I'll make a surmise and see if the staff present can support that or not. I'd say that it's probably due to, given the timing, the fare change that we made back in, I think it was September, when we increased the fare for the dial-a-ride component of the red line to match the cherry lift component, and which then moved a lot of the people who were eligible for cherry lift back to cherry lift freeing capacity on the red line for the non-cherry lift eligible dial-a-riders, and there was actually a kind of an outreach on the part of the district to call those people who were eligible for red line but not for Cherriots lift, trying to use, and let's see here, Chariot shopper, try to use the new names. And it's probably that payoff, that outreach, bringing people back to buses that were no longer crowded for the dial-a ride. Is that likely to be the cause for it?
That is a possibility. I'll definitely look into it and try to provide an answer, but I don't have that at this time.
Okay.
So we'll take a look at it and provide a response in my weekly report next week.
Super.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments?
David looked like he was trying to say something.
Well, we certainly, as General Manager Pollack said, we can provide something more substantive next time. But I was just going to follow up with Director Hamill. I think you are correct in your assumption with regard to sort of the increase in the Cherriots shop and ride service. It is for the aforementioned situations that you talked about. We have spent a lot of time promoting the service through our travel training efforts and et cetera. And for those who may not qualify for the complimentary ADA paratransit side, it is a good alternative use. So all of those things that you mentioned do contribute to some of that ridership increase. But if you'd like a more substantive report, we can certainly provide that as well.
Yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, because it was the one bright shining star in the report as a whole.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We appreciate the report. All these reports are looking very positive. I know we're down a little bit, but I'm expecting with the change in the regional Cherriots service that we're going to see a rise there because the buses will be more dependable in their on-time performance, and that should bring more riders.
Yes, I think that things that we have done over the last year or so we're getting ready to have a payoff.
Yes. So
I hope that is the case.
well, you have a somewhat optimistic board here. We look at the glasses being half full, not half empty.
Thank you.
So thank you. And now we're ready for board member reports, and we'll go to the Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committee, and I'll call on Director Hamill.
That one is very easy. The Special Transportation Advisory Committee is pretty much done for this year. No meeting in March, no meeting in June. I expect the next meeting will be in September. The one thing that is still currently active is that we are looking for citizen members to join the Special Transportation Advisory Committee.
Okay, so if there are citizen members out there that are interested, we have openings for you.
Mm-hmm.
And Director Kelly is not here to report on the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, and you didn't happen to attend that, did you?
No, I don't think they had one.
Okay.
It was canceled.
Okay, it was canceled. And the Director Thompson attended the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments.
And we had a real busy last couple of months, and just for your information, last fall we lost our executive director to medical problems, and we started a process to hire a new executive director for COG, and it culminated in a full day of interviews a couple of weeks ago, and we had 3 different panels that met with 4 different candidates. And we had a management panel from the COG. We had a member panel, which included Alan was gracious enough to spend a morning with us to evaluate this person. And then we had the selection panel get together, and we interviewed for several hours, and then we decided on the person. And the person that we selected is Sean O'Day, who, as the executive director, and he has been, or was, the assistant city manager for Salem for a few years. And prior to that, he was an assistant attorney, city attorney for the city of Salem. We're real excited about him. He brings with him a lot of excitement and energy, and he is an attorney, which, I'm not sure that's good, but maybe it probably
It's not bad.
It probably is. It probably is okay. And I think probably a number of you on the board know Sean, and he would probably be real excited about him being there. But I know he's excited about there. He started last Monday, and this is his first week. And we have a lot of hope that there's going to be some real strong movement there.
Thank you. And Director Bush attended the SCATS meeting, Salem-Keizer Area Transportation Study Policy Committee.
That's always a mouthful. Yes, I was there since Director Krebs had some other things he needed to do. We had several things on the agenda. We talked about the public participation plan, and it was amended, which talked about the same kind of topics we were talking about, the English proficiency and reaching folks in those populations and having processes put in place so that everyone can be communicated with. And so that had to be put in by December 31st. 2 transportation improvement plan amendments were discussed. One was removing the Wheatland Road project. They were going to put bike lanes and sidewalks up there. So there were some questions about, I wasn't quite sure what it really made it, but they chose to defer the decision on that one till next month. Could you speak on that, why we deferred that one, Steve?
The issue is around the funding for the program. City of Keizer is recommending that they pull back from using federal funds on the project, but because it is a significant project being funded at a local level, the transportation improvement plan that is part of the document that keeps an account of all the projects within the area that then rolls into a statewide document. They also include locally funded major projects. So the original action was to remove it from the transportation improvement plan because they were not going to use federal funds. But the City of Keizer wants to make sure that it is included, and there were a couple of steps that they needed to make sure of, and that's why they wanted to bring it back next month. So the original plan was to remove it, but they didn't want to take that action until they make sure they get all the details ironed out with the local funding.
Okay. I thought it was on that, but I wasn't sure how to explain it. Thank you very much. And the other project that they voted on to continue to amend was the engineering phase to the McGilchrist Street Southeast, so they got that. It's moved on. The letter of support from SCATS to the U.S. DOT for our grant application for our new low-no buses was passed. Some updates on the CMAQ from Mike Jaffe and Mayor Clark. They're still working on a funding formula with a possible end of summer public hearing. So June 2nd is the next meeting on that. They discussed a little bit about the legislative funding and the letter that we all talked about at our special meeting, what our input was that. So I'll let Director Krebs to talk about how that turned out for OMPOC. And they introduced Mr. O'Day, and the next SCATS meeting is June 27th.
Thank you. And I attended the OMPOC meeting, and the OMPOC is the Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization Consortium. There are 9 metropolitan planning organizations that do the transportation planning in Oregon, and those, just to brief everybody, are the Portland metro area, and then Salem-Keizer, Corvallis, Albany, Grants Pass, and Lane County, and Medford area, Rogue Valley, and then we have Bend, and then there's one that doesn't really participate, but it's Milton Free Water in Walla Walla, Washington. It's a 2-state one. And we met yesterday in the meeting room at ODOT, and the meeting was sort of a one-item agenda. We had 2 items. We elected new officers, and Mike Quillick of the Rogue Valley Council of Governments was elected chair of the group, and I was elected as the vice chair. And I think I'm the first transit guy that's been an officer in that group, so we hope we can get some things done. And then we spent the rest of the meeting talking about the proposed transportation bill, and just to bring the board up to date, we talked about the major issues, and there is not a bill pending at this time, but they expect that there will be a bill out by the 31st of May and possibly a hearing on the 5th of June. That's supposed right now. And we had a agenda with a lot of points, but basically we talked about transit funding, and this is the 1/10 of 1% payroll tax that would amount to about $107 million per year for transit in the state. And of that, there was a proposal that 85% of that went to operations such as in the counties around the state, which would include Salem-Keizer Transit. 10% was for competitive grants, and 4% was for intercity transit, and 1% for statewide resources, which would be a center in ODOT that would help small communities that don't have the personnel to apply for grants and so forth, and help them with some of their requirements with federal and state reports and so forth. And then we talked about bicycle pedestrian funding, and there's a talk of having an excise tax on new bicycles to pay for bicycle facilities around the state. And we also talked about safe routes to schools, and there was another talk there that if we had $10 million a year from the highway fund, it would pay for safe routes to schools within a quarter mile of every school in this, every urban school in the state. Then we talked about special allocations for small cities and small counties. That's small cities of less than 5,000 population, and small counties with less than 200,000 vehicles. And there would be a small pool of money. It would not be each county getting money every year, or each city, but there would be optional fund there for those small cities. And then there was the big, I guess the big elephant in the room was the increase in the highway fund. And there's a proposal for a 6-cent per gallon gas tax increase with a phase-in of an additional 8 cents over 10 years. The tiered title fee, which would increase $20 plus a 10-year phase-in of additional $20, and a tiered registration fee that would be the same, and then to retain the 50-30-20 split for ODOT, for highway funds to ODOT, counties, and cities. And then also the Oregon Highway Fund would be directed more towards preservation than it would be towards new stuff. And we went through this whole list and basically took it item for item. We had a long discussion because the meeting started at 9:30 and lasted until almost 2 o'clock. And we agreed on most of the things on here. We did not get too much into the accountability recommendations because those were adjustments within the ODOT structure, and we felt the legislature would determine how that would be taking place. But we then spent the afternoon wandering around the Capitol talking to legislators, and got mixed reviews on the transportation bill that's pending. We're going to have to really push if we're going to pass it, because it seems like there's people that are taking exception to portions of it, and that could hurt us, because it seems the things that are really raising hackles are more in the highway side than they are on our side. So hopefully we can get some sort of transit funding out of this legislature. But I think we all need to be contacting our legislators and talking to them, and that includes the general public. If you want to see improved bus service here, this is one of the ways we can do it. And if we can pass a bill that gives us state funding, or the payroll, the paycheck tax, or whatever type of tax that the legislature comes up with that will put money into our service, we can give you that Saturday and Sunday and evening service. I came away feeling we still have a good chance of passing this, but we are going to have to really advocate. And as board members, we can advocate. The staff cannot, because they work for a government agency, but the public and the board can advocate for this. We will have a next OMPOC meeting will be in Bend, and probably in early August. So that's all I have to report on that. And so I'll call on our general manager for
Thank you. So I would just add a couple comments. I was going to talk about the state transportation bill, so you did a good job of wrapping it up. The only thing I would say is, we are waiting for the bill to come out. We will be analyzing the language, not only our representative, but also OTA, so we can look at the elements of the transit component to prepare talking points, not only for the public hearings of the committee, but also when we need to then go to all of our local constituents to advocate for that. So expecting that sometime next week. So we will be, and then it becomes a lot of hustling because there's not much time left. So that's a pretty exciting time for that. Just a couple items to report. So last week was the Iris Festival, and you all know we were a sponsor. Thank you to those that came to the recognition luncheon for the sponsors. We also had a bus in the parade. It looked great. They did a great job decorating it. We even had one of our retired transit operators, Guy Dana, come back to paint the bus, and then staff put up flowers. So it looked really nice, and we were represented well in the parade. Reminder, next Monday is a holiday. It is one of those days where we do not provide service, but offices will be closed. And so earlier this week, I attended, along with Director Lincoln and Patricia Fina, the Center for Transportation Excellence Transit Initiatives and Communities Conference. I'll let Director Lincoln talk about it, and if there's anything else I want to add after that, I'll chime in. But it was pretty good conference. And pretty eye-opening about what may lay ahead for us, whether we go for a ballot measure or not. So that concludes my report.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Would you like to, well, I'll do my report and then you can do yours when you make your report. I had a busier month this month, even though I have missed the SCATS meeting. We had our regular board activities, but we had a lot of time working on the budget this year, since we had three evenings of budget meetings. And I attended 2 Chamber of Commerce functions, a greeters meeting and a forum lunch. I attended 2 City Club presentations, and I staffed the a.Cherriots table at the Morningside Neighborhood Association annual meeting. And then I attended the Iris Festival luncheon, and yesterday was almost a full day from being retired. I had 7 hours at the OMPOC meeting and wandering around the Capitol. And then the other issue was we had, Ellen and I had a meeting with the editorial board of the Statesman Journal. Actually, Patricia was there also, and discussed the potential impact on transit if the bill proposed that the legislature passes. And that's about my report, so I'll call on Director Lincoln, since you have a number of things to talk about.
I too attended the budget committee meetings, all 3 of them. Went to the Iris Festival luncheon and the a SEDCOR meeting, SEDCOR lunch, a couple of City Club lunches, and then yesterday I also attended the Salem event to show their get input on their bicycle plan. Colleen mentioned it, and Kiki, is it Dolman? Yes. Was there. She's also on that committee, so I saw her there. It was very interesting. I was trying to talk to them how they're going to connect the bike path to Keizer's bike path. It ends at the Parkway. And then I want to, as our general manager said, attended the conference in Seattle and transit initiatives, and the theme of it was how do local transit districts get ballot measures passed, and everyone needs to raise money for more bus service, how to prepare and conduct a successful ballot measure campaign. Of course, the 2 big successful ones that they were touting was, which is way out of our league, Seattle raised $54 billion measure, and Los Angeles passed a $120 billion plan to reimagine transportation in their region, which ours pales by comparison, but not by the amount of effort that it might take to pass a ballot measure here. So there were speakers from all over the country, and some of the takeaways, some of the things that stood out from their various workshops was they said that 70% of transit measures are successful, and if you don't pass one, don't give up. Keep trying until you do. Successful campaigns start early, like years early, and by building a strong coalition of partners, educating your community about what the transit district does for the community and how everyone would benefit from it. Stay in the public's view so that they know what you're doing. Keep track of wins, things that the transit district has done successfully for your community, and then you have that when you need it to tell them, hey, look what we can do for you. Find a local champion who can kind of head up your local coalition. Be clear about how the community can benefit. Focus your message, and get that message out early. Something like more buses, more places, more often. Just keep pounding that message in. One of the things I thought about as far as one of our wins, something that we should certainly tout, is the success of the state employee bus pass program. So, like I said, it was eye-opening, and one of the most important things that they kept saying was to start early. So I think that if this bus transportation package passes, knock on wood, we still don't want to let down our efforts, because we want to increase ridership, even if we don't need to raise money, even if we don't need to have a ballot measure. We want to increase ridership and increase the visibility in our community. So we need to start now, I think, get some groundwork that sets a foundation so that the community understands more what we are about and how we can benefit the community. And I wonder if we, right now, know how to go about doing that, if we're structured properly to do that community outreach and education. And so I'd propose that if the board agrees, that we ask the general manager to conduct an analysis of our structure here and how we're set up, to see if it's the kind of structure that we need to achieve the goal of the community education, engagement, and outreach, so that we will be prepared if we do have to go out for a ballot measure, and even if we don't, that we can increase our ridership and be a more successful district. So any thoughts on that proposal for the general manager?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and is very timely.
I think he's been doing it since he's been here.
Yes, he has. But I think that maybe we haven't done our part enough. I don't think that there is the community coalition. I don't know if any of you saw, I'd like to mention that John Miller editorial in the paper probably a month ago. He's a local developer and very supportive of transit and walkable, bikeable communities. And I thought, hey, this is someone I wouldn't have expected to be in our corner, and he is, and he would be a great champion. He knows lots of people. His wife was the mayor. Someone like that. I'm not proposing. I mean, goodness, but we need a local champion other than those of us we're the choir.
You have any
Yes,
comments?
I would comment on her comments. So just so we're all clear, so the big thing about these conferences, it really talks about the two roles: the role of the campaign committee, which is more your advocate group, and the role of the transit district, which was to educate and inform. And that's what we were talking about when we're looking at structure. You don't go talk to anyone and they ask them for it. How can the transit district create an information and education and outreach campaign to increase awareness and knowledge of the district, so that you have a strong understanding of the district? So when and if a ballot measure does come, that campaign committee then takes it from there. But it's laying that groundwork every day, telling the story, getting the good marketing. You got to hit them 6 or 7 times with different outlets, and really getting the fundamentals of communication strategy and getting that information out there so people understand. We are doing it, but really talking about, are we, it's an opportunity to take a step back to say, okay, if we really want to do this, are we in the right setup? And take a look at it. So it's a good time to do that. Because what I certainly don't want to do is have the board say, okay, go implement an extensive education and awareness campaign and try to fit it in with everything else we're doing. So do we have the right priorities to do that? Is there something we need to look at changing? So we just don't know what that is, so giving us some time to analyze that and report back. So, because if we're here and we should be here, how are we going to get from here to here to do that?
Right, that was something else they talked about, have a timeline, so where do we want to be in 2 years, and how do we get there? And this fits in with the strategic plan that we're working on too. I mean, that was one of our bases. Let's be more, form a coalition, form some partnerships. And I'd also like to note that City of Salem just adopted their strategic plan, and there's six objectives or pillars, and the sixth one is to work more cooperatively with a.Cherriots to provide service that the community needs. So,
Need to build on that.
you need to build on that, right?
Talk about the transit committee they just assigned.
Oh, do you want me to?
Yeah.
Did they sign that resolution?
Yeah, it was approved.
Because I asked Tom Anderson about it last night, and he didn't seem to. But anyway, the City of Salem adopted a resolution that sets up a transit committee, and I think it has 3 city councilors and 4 members of the public. 5? 6? 6 members of the public. And to work more cooperatively with a.Cherriots to provide the service that's needed. So it's nice to know that at least now, they're working with us as partners. Let's get the service for the community. It's us, not fighting us about it. But were you there, Steve, when they had that discussion?
No. But, so I did have a chance to chat with the mayor today. We weren't really in a setting to have a conversation, but we mentioned it. And I told him, well, we want to be a part of it. And what does that look like? Because the committee is really designed to help the city help us. And because there's certain things the city can do, especially in the development code area. It took a little different turn. We thought kind of started off would be a joint work session of the 2 bodies and then create a subcommittee of the 2 bodies to do this deep dive. But somehow this transit committee with citizen members has now been established without any transit representative on it. So we have to figure out how to make that work.
Right.
Okay. Looks like a lot of exciting things are happening. Director Bush?
Okay, I'll wake up. I had a very busy month. Started out with being a week away with 6th graders doing outdoor school and the wilds of Yamhill, but we had a very good time. I attended several meetings. I was part of a play. I went to the Keizer Parks Advisory Committee, and they were talking about the park fee that's up for discussion in the city of Keizer. They talked about the solar eclipse event coming up in August, and that's been the main conversation all over the city. Several things with Keizer Fire. I went to their board meeting, and I'm part of their budget committee, so we did our budget work for all in one day, and it's compared to the a.Cherriots, the budget is so small, and whoa, it just went really fast. But one of the things they're talking about is Safeway had put in a possible gas station request there at Chemawa and River, and so some city coding has been in the talks there. They pulled it back, but they're concerned for Keizer Fire because the Keizer Fire is right across the street, and there's a bus stop right there as well. So all that's part of that conversation. They are hiring a new deputy fire marshal, and I've been asked to be part of that assessment team tomorrow. So that's something new for me. I attended the Iris Festival sponsor lunch and Willamette Valley Greeters that weekend, and I was able to walk in the parade with Weddell Elementary. Our neighborhood association let's see, working on National Night Out, but it's going to be recognized by the Salem-Keizer School District on June 13th as a community partner. That's going to be exciting. I attended the Salem City Club. I guess that's enough. Oh, re-elected. I get to do this for 4 more years. So thank you very much.
Director
Yeah,
Evans.
well, I was on a 3-week road trip through Palm Springs, Sedona, and Las Vegas, and we don't have any trouble with traffic at all if you compare us to Las Vegas. I saw a couple folks get run over, basically get knocked over by cars, and I thought, I'm riding the bus, I'm getting out of here. But they have a great transportation system, and on Sunday morning in Sedona at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was walking at the end of Oak Creek Village, which is the far end of Sedona. A bus rolls up on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. I thought, why aren't we doing that? I did attend the last budget hearing. I was available for that. And attended the West Salem Business Association meeting today, where the hottest topic with Councilor Lewis was, what are we going to do about the Wallace Road traffic jams, and why can't we get that third bridge moving faster? And Councilor Lewis did mention that they had arranged a committee to help us out with our transportation to get Saturday and Sunday service. So I think, honestly, it should include somebody from here, at least a couple bodies. I don't know why they didn't think of that. It's like looking on the outside, looking in, or something. Anyway, I think, on June 1st, there's a comprehensive plan meeting at the Commons Broadway at 6 o'clock in the evening. It's our second opportunity to go listen to the pro-bridge and anti-bridge folks. Hopefully there's more that happens besides that this time. And that's about it.
Thank you. Director Hamill.
All right. It was a pretty busy month this month for transit. We had the work session and the special session early. That special session, was that right at the end of April?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then tonight, and the budget meetings, and that's pretty much what everyone's been through. I think that this, based on my experience this month, this is a very good time to start looking at building community support for expanded transit services. It's
That's right.
The topic is more current than it has ever been, and I think that's largely because of the city council's work. But at both the neighborhood association meetings I went to, it was a substantial topic. The whole transportation package was a topic at the American Council for the Blind meeting, because those folks are all transit dependent, or virtually all, and it was an active discussion there as well. So I think the iron is pretty much hot. It's time to strike on that sort of thing, and that's my report.
Thank you. Director Thompson.
Well, I had a busy month also, but I think pretty much everybody's mentioned most of the things that I did. One exception to that is the policy committee of the chamber. I went to that, and the SEDCOR lunch, and most of the time I spent on the COG issues. So I did a lot of hours, but not a whole lot of different things.
Recuperating.
What was that?
Recuperating.
Well, yeah, that too.
And we're glad to have
And
you
I'm doing well. I'm exercising 3 times a week, and things are getting better.
Welcome back.
That's good. Well, we've reached the end of our, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss? If not, we will adjourn the meeting.
Ta-da.
Look at me, remember.